Thanks for asking me along to talk today. I'm Kate Harvey. I'm currently Director of Public Health for the Isle of Wight Council, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the local authority SPARC scheme. So it's short placements for academic research collaboration. When I did my LA-SPARC, it's worth saying I was a consultant in Southampton City Council. So I'll talk through a little bit about what the LA-SPARC involves. So I think people will be aware that they're funded short placements up to £15,000. It gives an opportunity for researchers to move from a research setting to a local authority, or local authority workers to move into a research setting. So that movement can be in either direction to really help build the skills and ability to co-develop future research and make sure it's relevant to policy and practice. So it's really focused on collaboration and that link between NIHR settings specifically and local authorities. And the application form is fairly standard. I won't talk through it in a lot of detail, other than to say that the Gantt chart and the detailed budget can sometimes take the longest to work out exactly what's going to be done. So for me, my story around the LA-SPARC, my background is I'm a consultant in public health, so I'm registered with the UK Public Health Association and worked as a consultant in public health for 10 years and was also, whilst at Southampton, working to support the Research Support Service Specialist Centre for Public Health with the University of Southampton. So while I was with the NIHR RSS, I really was getting much more exposure to public health research and really understood what people could do as a practitioner academic and what opportunities there were out there. So for me, the LA-SPARC came right in that key central point for me in developing as a practitioner academic. So I knew I wanted to go on and do doctoral studies, and I was preparing a doctoral local authority fellowship and actually focused the LA-SPARC on preparing and supporting my interview if I was successful with the interview for the DLAF, but also in building up the relationships and understanding of research that I'd need for the future. Since doing the LA-SPARC, I've actually been successful with my doctoral fellowship application, and I've started working as Director of Public Health on the Isle of Wight. I've included here thinking really onto the future, because one of the things that the support from the Research Support Service gave me was a real understanding of how important it is to have an eye on what that future longer term goal could look like. Throughout all the discussions, whether it was during my short placement or in the doctoral fellowship interview, having an eye on opportunities for postdoctoral research, even if that's a route that you decide not to go down, was really helpful in just being able to frame the context and future benefit of what I was doing. So for me, the purpose of my local authority short placement was to increase my understanding and relationships, focusing very specifically on social care economics research. And that was because my doctoral studies were framed around social connectedness, looking at an economic case and an ethical case for local authorities. And I knew that social care economics research was a growing field with some really key academics who I hadn't worked with in the past, and it felt like a really strong opportunity to understand the research and models that were being developed and build those connections. And secondly, for me, was around skills and experience, specifically to do with review methodologies and knowledge mobilisation. And then really looking ahead to supporting that future doctoral study. That was thinking particularly about refining some of the research questions, but also thinking about the interview and future opportunities beyond. And the fifth one on the list is something that I think NIHR really focus on as alongside the personal development, and something for me that was really important, which was making sure that the work I did was going to be of benefit to the host team. So perhaps piece that I found the most difficult in the entire LA-SPARC process was narrowing down where to go. It's possible to be absolutely spoilt by choice. The NIHR network and different schools are vast. There are so many opportunities. On the NIHR LA-SPARC website, there's a really nice summary of where you can go. It's pages and pages of ideas. But I found that I could hone it down very specifically when thinking about what the purpose of that placement was for me. So I knew, first of all, that the School for Social Care Research was going to be useful for me. And looking at the list of teams that were working within the School for Social Care Research. The LSE Care Policy and Evaluation Centre stood out, partly because of some of the academics working there, but partly because of the projects they were running, specifically the Essence project, which was a compendium of social care economics research, specifically focused at translating research into practice for local authorities. So for me, that was absolutely what I was hoping to achieve. So I managed to hone down which team to go to. Within the Essence project, it's a cross-organisation piece of work. So I identified Dr. Michaela Tinelli, who was really coordinating the project, and approached her to ask if she'd be willing to supervise my short placement. I think one of the things that I learned from the placement was about the benefits of building those wider relationships in the team. So initially having a conversation with Professor Martin Knapp, who works with Dr. Michaela Tinelli, but also thinking about the other academics that work across other institutions as well within that context. So the activities for me, it's worth saying, the SPARC was predominantly to fund backfill salary costs, and I did 21 days between April and July of this year. Thinking about ways to build understanding and relationships for social care economics research firstly. I joined the NIHR Social Care Economics Networks. That's something that the London School of Economics coordinated. I attended NIHR School of Social Care Research Conference and became a member of the Essence project group. In terms of review methodologies, one of the key outputs for me was around a scoping review summary of methods. So that was really helpful for me in understanding the methods that could be used, but also looking specifically at the potential use of artificial intelligence when running routine searches and updating searches. And I did some LSE courses and linked with the library, but also had some joint work with a research associate in the team. Thirdly, in terms of knowledge mobilisation, there was some NIHR knowledge mobilisation training, and I reviewed the Essence toolkit from a local authority perspective, which for the team was really helpful, but for me was also really useful, thinking about the different routes and really solidifying that in a knowledge mobilisation plan as one of my key outputs. For future doctoral study, the activities for me were really about building the relationships and having some good evidence for the interview, but also running some practice sessions and getting advice off people in the wider research team. So the key outputs were the scoping review methodology document, knowledge mobilisation plan, and also sessions like this and case studies to really share experiences and learning, which was really valuable, I think, for the Essence project and LSE as well. As I said, for me as an early career researcher and practitioner academic, it was great to get the skills and knowledge. Really good to build those relationships and really helpful in setting that future research direction. And I think really was a key enabler in me being successful in that doctoral fellowship interview. And for the Essence project, building the relationships with local authorities, I think was a real benefit and one that they've expressed to me. I'm still a member of the Essence project advisory board, and that's a really helpful stakeholder group. But it also, for Essence, improved their impact and knowledge mobilisation with a plan for local authority engagement and joint sharing of information back and forth. And it's also built, I think, a foundation for future collaboration and opportunities. So I was thinking about a few key bits of learning to pass on. Firstly, there are huge opportunities across NIHR sites. There's a really good list here. I've included the link. Second point for me was around the clarity on the purpose of the placement. So keeping that real focus on what it is that the placement is hoping to achieve for you as an early career researcher or a researcher at any stage of your career, and the benefits for the host team were really helpful given the really severely limited time with some of this work, and that plans change. People may have sickness absence, booked leave, roles may shift through that time, and keeping that clarity of focus really helped me come back to the core purpose and I think do something that was really useful and beneficial on both sides. Thirdly, developing relationships beyond your supervisor. Real opportunity to build that wider teamwork and connections that will be useful for the future. Fourthly, the financial processes for local authorities who aren't used to reclaiming grants and money from NIHR was really important to lay down the logging I had a simple Excel document to log all my spend, so it was easy to track back through the books and the ledgers when the NIHR needed funding evidence at the end. I did come unstuck with one of our travel booking platforms where it's very hard to get the receipts after completing and closing that travel. But having those processes agreed early makes it a lot easier when that claim form does need to go in. And finally, the networks and support are invaluable. It's a real opportunity to build networks with other practitioner academics and researchers across other local authority settings as well. So becoming part of that NIHR broader network was a real opportunity. So I know there's a current call open at the moment, and I've included the link here.